The kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby was one of the most famous crimes of the early 20th century. This crime shocked the whole nation, and to this day, there are so many unanswered questions about it. So let's get into it. On March 1st, 1932, a baby was stolen from his crib while he was sleeping. The baby belonged to two very wealthy and famous parents, Charles and Anne Morrow Lindbergh. At the time of the kidnapping, the baby was only 20 months old. He had been born prematurely and spent some time in an incubator. That's why everyone started calling him the incubator baby. Charles was famous for being the first man to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. He was a true American hero, and that's why, when their son was kidnapped, the whole country was deeply affected. Even President Hoover said that the kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby is a matter of more than local or state concern. It is a matter of national concern. But who would want to kidnap the baby? How did the kidnapper get into the house? And where is the baby today? Well, unfortunately, there are no answers to these questions. But we do know that the case had plenty of suspects. One of the main suspects was a 75-year-old maid named Elizabeth Hauptmann. Elizabeth worked in the household for 6 years and liked the family very much. She would often take care of the baby and knew how much the couple cherished their child. So why would she take the baby away from them? Well, Elizabeth's niece, who shared her name, was having an affair with Bruno Hauptmann. Bruno was a German immigrant who had served time in prison before. He was also unemployed at the time of the kidnapping. In fact, Bruno Hauptmann was the one who came up with the idea of kidnapping the baby. He told his mistress about the large reward money that would come with the baby's return. So Elizabeth helped Bruno to plan out the kidnapping. Bruno was the one who broke into the house and kidnapped the baby. Elizabeth received $5,000 for her involvement. Now, this might seem like a crazy theory, but there's actually quite a bit of evidence that supports it. Let me explain. Bruno was convicted of the crime, but he always maintained his innocence. Even though he was sentenced to death, he never confessed. In fact, he died by electric chair in 1946. Years after the trial, a judge came forward and said that Bruno Hauptmann was indeed guilty. According to him, Bruno had admitted to him that he had committed the crime. But of course, this isn't proof, it's just hearsay. What is proof, however, is the fact that the police found a ladder outside of the Lindbergh home. Bruno had used this ladder to climb into the baby's room. They also found the blood of the baby on Bruno's clothes, along with the baby's blanket. Now, the police were so sure they had caught the right guy that they didn't even bother collecting DNA evidence. By the time they realized they needed DNA evidence, it was too late. Both pieces of evidence had been lost. So what makes this case so interesting is that there is a chance that Bruno Hauptmann was innocent. To this day, some people believe that he was framed. Elizabeth Hauptmann was also acquitted of all charges against her. However, her niece stuck to her story and refused to testify on her behalf. After the trial, Elizabeth's reputation was ruined and she could no longer work as a maid. She became an alcoholic and died in 1981. But if Elizabeth and Bruno didn't kidnap the baby, then who did? Well, another suspect was a man named John F. Unlike Bruno, John had no criminal record and was well liked in his community. He was married with 3 kids and worked as an auto worker. However, in February 1932, John got into some trouble at work. His boss accused him of stealing. That same month, he tried to withdraw a large amount of money from the bank, but he was denied. Just a few days later, he borrowed $5,000 from a friend of his. 10 March witness saw John driving near the Lindbergh home. The witness thought something was strange and decided to follow him. John drove past the Lindbergh home and turned around. A little while later, the police received a phone call saying that a baby had been kidnapped. So why did John go to the Lindbergh home that day? We don't know. But what we do know is that John's wife bought a lot of baby supplies in the following weeks. This included baby food, baby soap, and diapers. And here's where things get really weird. John's wife was infertile. She couldn't have children. So why did she buy all of those baby supplies? Did she and her husband kidnap the baby? Well, the police certainly thought so. When the police searched their house, they found $4,000 hidden in a metal box. They also found a pillow with the same ticking as the one in the baby's crib. Plus, John had the perfect motive. He was in desperate need of money. However, when the police arrested him, John had an alibi. According to him, he was at work when the baby was kidnapped. And guess what? His alibi checked out. He really was at work. So even though John seemed guilty, he was released without any charges. But maybe neither of these people were guilty. Maybe the Lindbergh baby is still out there somewhere. There was a man who lived in the woods in New Hampshire. He claimed to be the Lindbergh baby, but he wasn't quite right in the head, so no one took him seriously. Plus, the authorities had already found a skull in the woods that was believed to be the baby's, so there was no reason for them to believe that he was still alive. However, in 2022, a man named Todd said that his biological father was Charles Lindbergh, and that he is the real Lindbergh baby. According to Todd, his father kept secret that he had another kid. Then when the original baby was kidnapped, Charles gave Todd to a nurse and told her to raise him as her own. This may sound far-fetched, but Todd has already provided DNA evidence that proves he is related to Charles. Unfortunately, we will probably never know for sure what happened to the real Lindbergh baby. There are so many unanswered questions about this case, and to this day, we still don't know who the kidnapper was. It's possible that it was Bruno and Elizabeth. After all, Elizabeth's niece testified against her and they had the perfect motive. But it's also possible that John was guilty. He had the perfect motive and opportunity, but his alibi protected him. Who do you think was guilty? Do you think Bruno and Elizabeth planned the kidnapping together? Or do you think John was guilty? Or do you think Todd is the real Lindbergh baby? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. By the way, if you want to see my short videos, check out my other content. I'll see you next time.